What's up, friend? Welcome back to Seed and Sparrow Homestead. My name's Kelsey. Today we are working on the fall garden. We're starting some seeds. However, if I'm being completely honest, this is the second time I am starting seeds for the fall garden. They all died. That's just typical of me this time of year. I just have too much on my plate, and then things just get forgotten about and pushed to the side. And honestly, I was just thinking about not doing the fall garden at all. I just don't really have the bandwidth for it, but I know things are gonna settle down, and I know I'll regret not doing it. So I have some time tonight. It's really not that much work. I'm not doing a huge fall garden, just a few things that grow better this time of year than during the spring. And I have lots of spaces opening up in the garden now from all of the harvesting I've been doing, and I do want to get them filled. I don't like seeing empty spaces there when I know I could be growing food. So I've got an hour, maybe two right now, but I'm gonna work on this before my husband gets home and we have other things to do. So hopefully I can get this all done and the fall garden will be a go. So I'm in South Central Pennsylvania. This is zone 6B. That doesn't really matter too much unless you're talking about growing perennials in your zone. What we need to think about is our first frost date in the fall. So during spring planting, we are more concerned with our last frost date, when the last frost is approximately going to happen in the spring, and then we know when we can plant. For fall planting, we want to calculate how many days are left until our first frost in the fall. So here, my first estimated frost is October the 12th. So from today until then, I have 75 days left of growing time. Now, we can extend that a little bit. I mean, some plants will do perfectly fine with a light frost, and we can extend it even further by using some row cover, which I plan on doing with some things. So some plants that will grow well during a cooler season would be all of your leafy greens, your lettuces, kale, chard, spinach, your brassicas, so broccoli and cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels. You can grow things like peas. Peas do great. Carrots and beets. Some herbs. There are some flowers. Calendula does really well in the cooler weather. I'll leave a detailed list down in the description that you can refer to for what grows well during the fall season. If you're a new gardener, a fall garden is a really great time to start because there are just some perks to gardening in the fall. Number one, it's not so stinking hot, so it's just more pleasant to be outside. And because it's not so hot, you're not dealing with as much of like the environmental factors. You don't have as much disease. The pest pressure is really low. The humidity is lower, so at least here I'm not dealing with, the threat of blight or powdery mildew and those sort of things. So the disease is just much lower. So there's not as much frustration usually that can happen. I mean, there's always a chance for something, but I find fall gardening to be a bit more laid back and just fun. So because it's still hot outside right now, we were just in the 90s. It is too warm for these cooler weather loving crops to germinate or to do well and thrive. They would most likely struggle or just not germinate at all. So I will be starting the majority of these things inside, and then they're gonna be under grow lights for a few weeks until the weather starts to cool down, and then I'll harden them off and we'll get them out in the garden. Let me quick go over what I am putting in my fall garden and what we are starting today.
I have two types of cauliflower, the Robert and the Purple of Sicily. Just growing some Waltham 29 broccoli, some Savoy cabbage, this is the first time growing that for me, and some more Brussels sprouts. For my leafy greens, I'm just doing some spinach and some kale, some blue Scotch curled kale and some American spinach. For peas, I have spring blush, golden sweet, some sweet gem, and some wando. For my beans, I'm doing the same as I have now, some Contender, some Golden Wax, some Royal Burgundy, and some Dragon Tongue Bush Bean. I'm going to throw in a few herbs, some chives, sweet marjoram, rosemary, and thyme. These are things I'm going to put into pots, and then I'm going to keep them inside over the winter months. For lettuces, I'm just doing some butter crunch, and then I'm going to do some arugula as well. Nothing too extravagant there. And I'm going to sow some more Detroit red beets. For carrots, I'm doing Imperator, Atomic Red, some Corral, some Danvers, and then this last variety, I'm going to let you figure out how to pronounce that one. I'm going to try growing some turnips for the first time as well and see how we like those. And then 2 types of parsnips, some Hollow Crown and some All-American.
So the carrots and the parsnips, I am not going to sow those for a little bit yet. It's still too hot. These are not things that transplant well. I'm going to direct sow them outside. But the temps need to be below 80 consistently, preferably not hotter than 75. So I might have to wait another month. But the cool thing about carrots and parsnips is if they go through a frost, they actually become more sweet. So I actually prefer growing them in the fall and then just allowing them to overwinter in the ground. So I'll plant them probably maybe end of August, first week of September, somewhere in there. And I will just let them go throughout the winter. They'll do just fine in the ground. You can use that as your storage method, especially if you're like me and you don't have a root cellar. It's a great way to keep them fresh, and they're just super sweet when they experience that frost. All right, so I don't know if you can see this, but my seed starting mix is steaming. And the reason for that is whenever I am seed starting, I always pour boiling water over whatever growing medium I am using. With seed starting mix, this is already sterile. So by pouring the boiling water over it, I am not killing off any of the good things. What I am killing off though is the potential for any little bugs or eggs that may have been laid in here that could potentially cause harm to my seedlings. One year I was inundated with those little teeny tiny little gnats, and they were all over my plants, all over the basement downstairs where I have my grow light set up, and it was just gross. And from that point on, I learned about sterilizing it by boiling it and making sure I don't have those issues again. So like I said, it's already a sterile mix, so there's no like fertilizers or good bacteria in here. So I'm not harming any good stuff because there isn't any in it, and we'll just add the good stuff later on. So I'm gonna allow this to cool down a bit. I'm gonna go grab all of my seedling pots and trays. I lied. We're not using pots. We're just doing the soil blocking. So I need all my trays, which are out in the greenhouse. And, okay, it's not raining yet. We're supposed to get some severe thunderstorms tonight, and I hear the thunder. There's no rain, so I'm gonna quick go grab those. I don't think I should need more than 2 or 3, but I do wanna hose these off. They're pretty scummy. I'm not sure what my husband did with the nozzle. Alright, so I have everything I need. Now I am gonna have a little date with Pride and Prejudice while
I make all of the soil blocks. Okay, totally random, not related to gardening at all, but I'm curious, who is a Pride and Prejudice fan, and if so, are you team 1995 Colin and Jennifer or team 2005 Kira and Matthew? I like both, but both for different reasons. I think the 1995 version has my heart, but I love the music in the 2005 movie and just like the film work and the scenery. I just thought it was really beautiful. But let me know, if you're a Pride and Prejudice fan, which one is your favorite? Now, the last time I did a seed starting video, I said I would give you an update on how I liked using the soil blocks. And the conclusion I've come to is I like it better than using the pots. I like that it doesn't require any pots. It cuts down on the waste and expense. It's very easy to tell when they need watered. And compared to the ones that I had sowed in pots, I think the ones in the soil blocks looked so much better. They looked very healthy. And I think some of that could be contributed to the airflow, and just knowing that I wasn't overwatering and underwatering. So I think this is definitely my preferred method from now on. The only real complaint I have with the soil blocking is they're not very, they don't hold together very well. They're pretty fragile until the roots start growing and kind of act as the glue to the soil blocks. So there isn't really a great way to mark them individually. Like I would use the plant tags, but if you try to pierce these, they just kind of, split or break apart. I even have to be a little bit careful when sowing bigger seeds and pushing them down too far because it just makes the whole block kind of disintegrate, which isn't that big of a deal to me. I'm just pretty careful with them, and I might try some other maybe soil recipes, see if there is a better mix of mediums that will hold together a bit better. So I did just want to mention, if this is your first year growing a fall garden, to make sure the varieties you're choosing, that they would at least come to maturity before your first frost in the fall, because some varieties within a category will mature quickly and others will take much longer. So I try to at least choose varieties that will mature faster. So I decided to do an entire tray of peas, and I put 2 seeds per soil block. And I'm not going to thin them. I want there to be at least 2 in each soil block. So that will give me somewhere around 60 plants. So we did 1 tray of peas, and then the other 2 I just kind of split up with the rest of the varieties that I am growing. There are lots of other things that I could start, but honestly, like I said, I don't have a ton of bandwidth to put towards this in a fall garden. We just have lots of things going on, and with my health not being great, I'm trying not to put too much stress on myself, so I'm keeping it pretty simple this year, although maybe to some people this doesn't seem simple, but for me, I tend to go overboard on some things, so this is pretty toned down for Kelsey. So for the beets and the turnips, I am going to sow them inside. I had done a multi-sown beet method like Charles Dowding does, and I really liked that. I did sow in the spring groups of 3 and 4, and I think I'm only going to do groups of 2 and 3 this year. Those seem to do the best. You see little pudgy hands there helping me. He's such a good little seed sower. So this entire tray here is a combination of beets and turnips. And I decided to do them in this 72 cell tray just because it's easier to pop these in the ground quickly, and I have a lot of them. So now that I have everything sown, I'm going to get them under the grow lights. They're going to live there for the next few weeks until I harden them off and get them outside once the weather has cooled down. And hopefully we will have a nice fall garden and another harvest season to look forward to a bit later on. If you have any questions about starting a fall garden, go ahead and drop them in the comments. I'll be happy to help you out. Like I said, I love fall gardening because it's just a bit more laid back and relaxing, and you can just, I think, enjoy it more. So especially if you have had a crummy summer garden, that happens to us all. We're constantly learning and figuring things out and dealing with different factors that are beyond our control. Sometimes a fall garden is just what we need. It's a nice reset. And just know, even the most seasoned gardener has crummy seasons. It happens to us all. Don't let it steal your joy. Just keep pushing forward and applying all that you've learned. Thanks for hanging out with me today, friend. I really appreciate it. You have a blessed day, and I will see you next time. Take care.